Hey rockers! Welcome back to WoodsRock, where we live and breathe for those classic riffs that defined a generation. Today we're embarking on an electrifying journey into the late 60s, a time when the very soul of rock music was being torn apart and rebuilt into something darker, heavier, and absolutely earth-shattering. These aren't just songs, they're sonic revolutions that forever changed the landscape of music. We're talking about 12 tracks that didn't just pioneer metal, they forged it, hammering out the riffs, tones, and raw aggression that would give voice to generations of headbangers. So buckle up, because we're about to witness the birth of thunder itself. Shapes of things. The Yardbirds, 1966. The first domino to fall. Picture this. It's 1966, and the Yardbirds just shattered every rule in rock's playbook with Shapes of Things.
My eyes just hurt my brain, but
this isn't just a song. It's the moment guitar feedback transformed from an accident into an art form. That raw, screaming fuzz tone that Jeff Beck unleashes, it's like hearing the future scream through a Marshall stack. While the song itself still danced in psychedelic territory, the sheer attitude and revolutionary guitar innovation made it the first crucial domino to fall in metal's inevitable rise. And notice the controlled feedback at the end? Jeff Beck wasn't just making noise. He was manipulating it, bending it to his will. This wasn't a studio trick. It was the first deliberate use of distortion and noise as primary musical elements. A radical break from the clean sounds of the era. And here's the deeper shift. Before this, distortion was considered an error. Beck flipped that thinking. He treated it as an instrument in its own right. That philosophical leap, the idea that chaos itself could be harnessed and orchestrated, became the bedrock for every metal guitarist to come. From Iommi's colossal riffs to Hammett's searing solos, the DNA of metal's sound and spirit traces back to this single, explosive moment. Sunshine of Your Love, Cream, 1967. The power of the power trio. Then came Cream with Sunshine of Your Love, and good God, that riff. Thick as molten lead, heavy as a sledgehammer to the soul. Eric Clapton didn't just play blues rock, he weaponized it. That slow, grinding, hypnotic progression didn't just push boundaries, it obliterated them, inspiring every future metal guitarist to chase that perfect balance of power and groove. And here's the kicker. That iconic riff is built on a tritone, the so-called devil's interval. Combined with the swaggering blues rhythm, it gives the song a subtle, menacing edge that proves a single, repetitive riff can carry a track, make heads nod, and leave a lasting, heavy imprint. With Jack Bruce's pulsing bass line anchoring the groove, the track showed that heaviness didn't need speed, it needed weight and attitude. No wonder this riff became a blueprint for metal guitarists from Black Sabbath to Metallica. This is hard rock growing fangs. But the secret weapon wasn't just the riff, it was the format. As a power trio, Cream had to fill immense sonic space with just 3 musicians. Jack Bruce's bass didn't simply support Clapton, it challenged him, acting as a melodic lead in its own right. Meanwhile, Ginger Baker's jazz-inflected drumming created constant movement and tension, layering density where most bands left gaps. That interlocking wall of sound proved that true heaviness isn't only about distortion, it's about arrangement, about making 3 instruments feel like an army. Metal power trios from Rush to Motorhead carried this lesson forward, showing that raw muscle and chemistry could outgun even the biggest ensembles. Purple Haze, Jimi Hendrix, 1967. Hendrix rewires reality. And then, Hendrix. Purple Haze wasn't just revolutionary, it was apocalyptic. Jimi didn't just play guitar, he conducted storms of electricity, bending reality itself with fuzz and feedback from another dimension. But here's the genius. This chaos was controlled. With his Fuzz Face, Octavia, and that screaming wah-wah, he wasn't just hitting notes. He was sculpting sound, building a whole new language for the electric guitar. That opening riff wasn't just a melody. It was a declaration of war on conventional rock. Every mind-bending bend, every blast of feedback was alchemy in real time. Hendrix's fearless experimentation opened entire new sonic territories, inspiring future guitar heroes like Eddie Van Halen and Randy Rhoads to push tone, distortion, and aggression to the absolute limit. This track didn't just expand rock, it rewired it, laying down the blueprint every metal guitarist would study for decades to come. But Hendrix's true secret weapon wasn't just on stage, it was in the studio. With producer Chaz Chandler, the recording booth became a laboratory for sonic alchemy. That iconic opening riff? It wasn't only his fingers, it was the Octavia pedal doubling the octave, blended with a DI bass signal for extra thickness, then spun through psychedelic stereo panning. This wasn't just performance, it was production as performance. Hendrix proved that the future of heavy music would be forged not only by the guitarist's hands, but also by the producer's imagination. A lesson absorbed by every metal masterpiece from Master of Puppets to Far Beyond Driven. Helter Skelter, The Beatles, 1968. When the Fab Four got dangerous. Who saw this coming? The Beatles, the kings of pop perfection, dropped Helter Skelter, and it was pure unhinged chaos. This wasn't just a heavy Beatles track, it was a deliberate act of musical sabotage. Forget polish, this was raw, violent, and beautiful all at once. With Paul McCartney's gut-wrenching screams and those grinding, distorted guitars pushed to the breaking point, the Fab Four proved that rock didn't need complexity to be heavy. It needed pure, primal aggression. In that storm of distortion and unfiltered intensity, they didn't just shock the world, they cracked open the door to proto-metal madness. And its chaotic energy didn't fade into history. It planted seeds that bands like Black Sabbath and Slayer would grow into towering extremes of heaviness. The legend goes that McCartney set out to write the loudest, dirtiest song ever, and he meant it. The rough edges, the blown-out speakers, even the audible mistakes weren't flaws. They were the point. Ringo's exhausted scream, "I've got blisters on my fingers," was left on tape as a badge of raw authenticity. By chasing feeling over perfection, the Beatles stumbled onto a philosophy that would fuel punk and metal alike. Imperfection is power, aggression is art. Helter Skelter wasn't just heavy, it was a manifesto that chaos itself could be music. Summertime Blues, Blue Cheer, 1968. The volume wars begin. Enter Blue Cheer's Summertime Blues, and dear Lord, the volume. They took Eddie Cochran's innocent rock and roll classic and transformed it into a crushing avalanche of distorted fury. As a stripped-down power trio, they pushed their amps and gear to the breaking point, creating a deafening wall of noise that didn't just play loud, it assaulted you. The guitars flatten everything in their path, and the drums don't just keep time, they declare war on silence itself. This wasn't polish, it was pure, raw destruction, a sonic wrecking ball that set a new benchmark for heaviness. Blue Cheer proved that sometimes the secret to metal wasn't in the riff alone, but in the unapologetic abuse of sheer volume. That philosophy of loud as an identity would echo through future giants like Deep Purple and Motorhead, who carried this blueprint of overwhelming sound straight into the heart of metal. But here's the twist. Blue Cheer's heaviness wasn't just about cranking up, it was an accident of technology. They were among the first to use solid-state amplifiers, the notorious Randall RS-1000s, instead of tube amps. When you pushed them, they didn't break up warm, they clipped harsh, spewing a jagged, brutal distortion that defined the cover's sound. In doing so, Blue Cheer unknowingly kicked off metal's eternal obsession with gear, the quest for the perfect amp, pedal, and guitar setup to forge the ultimate tone. With Summertime Blues, heaviness stopped being only about what you played and became equally about what you played it through. Born to be Wild, Steppenwolf, 1968. The phrase that named a genre. Steppenwolf's Born to be Wild didn't just soundtrack biker culture, it gave metal its name. That immortal line, heavy metal thunder, wasn't some throwaway lyric. It became rock's battle cry and a self-fulfilling prophecy. Fueled by a riff-heavy, blues-based groove and raw, kinetic energy, the song felt like pure rebellion pressed to vinyl. Its massive success, and its legendary placement in Easy Rider, cemented heavy metal as both a cultural identity and a new direction for rock's future. Beyond naming the genre, that hard-hitting riff and unbridled attitude lit the fuse for future giants like Judas Priest and AC/DC. This wasn't just an anthem, it was the exact moment metal claimed its name, its sound, and its spirit of rebellion in one explosive package. Now, the term heavy metal technically existed before. William S. Burroughs used it in his novel The Soft Machine. But Steppenwolf didn't just use the words, they injected them straight into the bloodstream of youth culture. Born to be Wild described the thunder of motorcycles, but rock fans heard themselves in it. Power, rebellion, mechanical might. The culture adopted the term, and the music embraced it back. In that feedback loop of sound and lifestyle, rock didn't just find a name, it found its identity. Mandrake Root, Deep Purple, 1968. When guitar met orchestra at full volume, before Smoke on the Water, there was Mandrake Root, a molten slab of proto-metal just waiting to harden into legend. This track is more than a jam, it's a battlefield. Ritchie Blackmore's fierce, extended guitar solos clash and entwine with John Lord's searing, overdriven Hammond organ, creating a sonic storm that's both beautiful and terrifying. The organ doesn't just back the guitar. It stands shoulder to shoulder, giving the song a dense, ominous weight that set Deep Purple apart. Here's the secret weapon. John Lord didn't just play Hammond like a keyboardist. He ran it through a Marshall stack, distorting it exactly like Blackmore's guitar. Most bands had a loud guitarist. Deep Purple had a loud orchestra. That sheer symphonic weight, forged through pure rock and roll aggression, was a quantum leap. It meant melody and rhythm could be just as heavy as the riff itself. And here's the legacy. This collision of raw power and technical mastery became a cornerstone blueprint for the heavy sound of the 70s, paving the way not only for Black Sabbath's doom-laden riffs and Rainbow's neoclassical fire, but also for the orchestral ambitions of future metal, from Symphony X to Metallica's S&M. In Mandrake Root, you can hear psychedelic rock mutating into hard rock, and the very DNA of metal being forged in real time. In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, Iron Butterfly, 1968. The epic that hypnotized a generation. Clocking in at over 17 minutes, Iron Butterfly's In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida wasn't just a song, it was an experience. Built around that unforgettable, hypnotic organ riff and a bone-crushing bass line, it pulled listeners into a psychedelic trance that felt inescapable. But beneath the swirling haze, you can hear the DNA of early metal taking shape. Why don't you call Its sheer weight, plodding heaviness, and sprawling drum solo made it the prototype for the heavy rock epic, a cinematic journey that inhabited you rather than just playing in the background. And here's what made it radical: a 17-minute track that devoured an entire album side. At a time when records were just collections of singles, Iron Butterfly forced listeners into a side-long immersion. Heavy music wasn't just a catchy tune anymore. It was a world you had to live inside. The gamble worked. The song became a massive commercial success, proving there was an audience ready to go deep. That combination of slow, crushing repetition and monumental scale didn't just influence doom metal pioneers like St. Vitus and Candlemass. It paved the way for the grand concept albums of the 70s, 2112, The Wall, and the epic journeys of prog and doom metal alike. In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida showed that heavy could also mean deep, lengthy, and absolutely unrelenting all at once. Kick Out the Jams MC5, 1969, Rebellion on vinyl. From the Motor City came MC5's Kick Out the Jams, and it hit like a sonic sledgehammer. Recorded live in front of a ravenous crowd, this wasn't just garage rock, it was a riot pressed to vinyl. Raw, loud, and absolutely unhinged, its fuzzed-out guitars and Rob Tyner's howling vocals made it sound less like a performance and more like a revolution caught on tape. The frantic pace and sheer chaos bridged the gap between garage rock, proto-punk, and early metal, proving that rock's future wasn't just about heaviness. It was about speed, rebellion, and unfiltered energy. And rebellion wasn't just a vibe, it was the mission. Managed by White Panther Party co-founder John Sinclair, MC5 wielded distortion and chaos as weapons, a soundtrack for political upheaval. The noise itself became an act of defiance, an auditory vision of systems cracking apart. That link between extreme sound and countercultural ideology became part of metal's DNA, carried forward by bands from Motorhead to Metallica, and echoed in the political fire of Anthrax or Rage Against the Machine. Dazed and Confused, Led Zeppelin, 1969. Blues into Doom. Led Zeppelin's Dazed and Confused is doom incarnate, the sound of blues dissolving into a nightmare. Those dark, sludgy riffs don't just play, they haunt. Jimmy Page's grinding tones paired with his eerie violin bow technique create a droning, otherworldly atmosphere that feels part blues, part psychedelic hallucination, and all raw power. Add in John Paul Jones's heavy, menacing bass line and Robert Plant's tortured, emotive vocals, and the result is more than just a song. It's an atmosphere, cinematic in scope and spine-tingling in execution. But here's the twist. Page didn't write it from scratch. The song began as a folk tune by Jake Holmes, but Page recognized its dark, descending chromatic riff as raw material. By slowing it down, amplifying it, and stretching it into a vehicle for psychedelic blues exploration, he transformed it into something monumental. This act of borrowing and amplifying is a core principle of metal's evolution. Sabbath did it with blues, Metallica with Diamond Head. What matters isn't the source of the riff, but what you build around it. In Dazed and Confused, Page built nothing less than a cathedral of dread. 21st Century Schizoid Man, King Crimson, 1969. The brain of metal. 21st Century Schizoid Man hit like a beautiful disaster. Progressive, chaotic, and brutally aggressive. Robert Fripp's jagged, distorted riffs crash head-on with Ian MacDonald's screaming saxophone. all twisted through mind-bending odd time signatures like 5/4. It's organized pandemonium, raw force sharpened with intellectual precision, where sheer heaviness meets complexity. But the chaos was entirely composed. The guitar and sax didn't just wail, they locked into the same frantic mathematical phrases in unison. This wasn't anger for anger's sake. It was rage filtered through a conservatory-level understanding of music theory.
21st century schizoid man.
The result proved heavy music could be more than pentatonic blues or punk fury. It could be intricate, challenging, and dazzlingly technical while still brutally heavy. This track injected a progressive brain into heavy music, laying the foundation for tech metal and prog metal alike. Dream Theater, Tool, and countless others owe their very existence to this moment of brilliant chaos. Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath, 1970. The birth of heavy metal. This is the moment it all began. Black Sabbath didn't just define heavy metal, it created it out of pure darkness. That slow, ominous riff, built on the dreaded tritone, the devil's interval, was the exact second fear entered rock music. Tony Iommi's down-tuned, heavy-as-sin guitar tone, paired with Ozzy Osbourne's ghostly wails and lyrics steeped in occult horror, conjured an atmosphere of dread the world had never heard before. More than just a song, it was the birth of a genre. Its shadow stretches across every corner of metal, from the crushing dim of Sleep and Electric Wizard to the thrash fury of Metallica and Slayer. The legend behind it is as important as the sound itself. After losing the tips of his fingers in a factory accident, Iommi had to down-tune to ease the tension on his strings, accidentally creating the darker, heavier tone that defined metal's voice. Metal wasn't born from design, it was born from survival, perseverance, and innovation in the face of adversity. That struggle, that refusal to stop, is baked into the very DNA of heavy metal. There you have it, fellow rockers. 12 tracks that didn't just pioneer metal. They forged it in the fires of pure creative passion. From UK innovators pushing sonic boundaries to US trailblazers breaking every rule in the book. From psychedelic experiments that bent reality to doom-laden riffs that defined darkness itself. These songs prove that metal wasn't born overnight. It evolved in the shadows, one earth-shaking riff at a time, built by artists who dared to ask, what if music could be heavier? These tracks represent more than just songs. They're monuments to human creativity, testaments to the power of amplified rebellion, and the foundation stones of a genre that would give voice to generations of misfits, dreamers, and rebels. If these riffs make your soul headbang, smash that like button, subscribe to WoodsRock, and ring that bell like it's a sold-out metal show. Drop a comment below. Which of these tracks is your ultimate proto-metal anthem? Keep rocking, keep rebelling, and let's crank the volume to eternity.